Hi, my name is Peter Mott, and I'm Professor of Practice in Engineering Business Management at the University of Bath. The video you're about to see is a short taster lecture given by a guest lecturer, Dr Chiang Huang, to our Engineering Business Management and Innovation and Technology Management students. In it, he will talk about what he sees as the key success factors that are necessary in order to forge a career in engineering and technology management. Dr. Huang himself was a senior manager in the automotive segment with Ford Motor Company, in having both chief program engineer and strategy director roles. So for those of you that are interested in being a manager, whether it be in an engineering or technology companies, take the chance to listen to Dr. Huang and reflect on what are the skills you need to develop in order to be successful with your career.
We're going to talk about what are the key success factors. So these are very highest level in order to have a successful career in engineering management field. So what are the main success factors? So I want to make this succinct, brief, and impactful. Yeah, so I summarize in 4 big headings, and I will expand each one. Competency, number 1. Leadership, number 2. Communication, not just communication, you've got to be influential, first-class communicator. And thirdly, you've got passion, drive, motivation. So I want to expand this a little bit more with some examples, my personal experience, and hopefully you'll find them useful. Core competencies. So essentially, you're all engineering background. You're trained as an engineering particular discipline that you're good at. So you need to demonstrate that technical capability and the skill. Obviously, that build up some experiences as you go along in a certain organization or your own business, right? This is your bread and butter. That's not enough. You want to be a leader, manager. You need to understand the business environment that you operate, the competitions, your customers, your suppliers, and various market dynamics. And particularly right now, these days, we have a pandemic, we have a Brexit, we have a US election. All this will have impact on the business and market dynamics and financial acumen. At some point, guys, you need to understand an income statement. I just put this aside. It's a kind of a bit of a high order for you now. But at some point, I urge you to understand some financial income statement, financial acumen. And in fact, I'm confident because you guys have engineering background, these are not difficult, right? With your strong analytical skill, engineering skills, it's quite easy and logical to understand the income statement. And these are actually will help you to crystallize, understand how the business perform, etc., etc. And the critical thinking, analytical skill, these are again bread and butter as engineering managers. When you're looking for a job, you're doing interview, you do assessment center. Guess what? Most company will look at your critical thinking skill and analytical skills, and this has to be good, and it has to be work together with your technical capability, problem-solving skills, because at the end of the day, we're here to solve problems, okay, and engineering problems. Managing conflict trade-off, you probably think of managing people. I would say a lot of time, I would say managing the technical business trade-off. You probably have heard of this very classic triangle constraint. When you're running a project of any nature, you have to wrestle with specification, cost, and timing. Any project, you have these competing priorities, and you are constantly being asked to make trade-off and make a compromise. Guess what? That's a very important skills. That's why I say it's a part of your core competency development. And you are there to make a difficult decision. So when you're in a senior position, a senior engineering manager, you get paid to make difficult compromises, and you should be good at it. There are a lot of other things. I'm just highlighting the critical one through my personal experience. and you can relate to your experience, or you can put it in a perspective how you think you should develop these skills. Leadership. Any leaders need to have a strategic vision and know how to prioritize your tasks. And you lead people, so you need to be able to talk, to engage teams. Yeah, you want to delegate a task, you need to have an inclusive style, particularly in a large organization. The diversity is inclusive is one of the important imperatives that we need to do. And you need to have ability to build consensus. Because you're a leader, you can't just make your own decisions without considering other input and considerations. And you need to manage complicated relationship and stakeholders. So when you are in an organization, in a team, you have suppliers, you have employees, you have a boss, you have people in the same rank, you have people working for you, you have customers, many stakeholders surrounding you. So you need to have a critical awareness of them and also how to manage their expectations and their requirement. Organization culture context, I will quite a bit more later on using McKinsey's 7S model, because that provides you a very good context on what sort of skills are needed and why we need some kind of alignment between your skill set and organization objectives. And that is one of the important reasons that when you want to succeed in an organization, you need to get the alignment correct. And people skills involve communication, engaging. The next one, I have a separate sector, but it's a part of a personal drive. Not only personal drive, but in many situations, as a leader, you need to have a very strong emotional resilience. There are lots of roadblocks, project, timing is late, the cost out of control, the product failure can't meet the specification, employee unhappy, people fighting each other, they don't have a collaborative nature. All these issues you need to resolve, and you really need to demonstrate a very strong emotional resilience and able to contextualize. And that ability is quite important as a leader. Communication. I know we have quite a lot of international students here in this group last year, a lot of them, and myself was an international student from China in the past. And I can't emphasize enough how important the language, the English language is. In order to be successful in the international setting, international organization, you really need to develop the skills, because that's the first thing people will know, will hear. There's an interesting comment we had when I was in Ford. It's something like this. If you can't talk clearly about what you're trying to say, people don't blame the language. People will say you have a woolly mind, means your mind is muddled, right? It sounds a bit harsh, but in reality, that people's expectation, you have a role to play, you have a given short of frame time to talk, to give a clear point of view. If you fail to do that, it just shows people say you're incompetent. So what I'm trying to say is get the language as fluent, as competent as possible, and that really will help and support your thinking, your clarity of communication, and put forward a compelling argument and point of view. As a leader, it's particularly important. As a leader, you have to do messaging all the time, whether social media a lot these days. I guess during my career time was less. It's about direct communicating with people working for you, your bosses in a meeting, or to a large group, to media review. So at the different settings, you need to have a different technique for messaging. Clear, succinct. It's a one-to-one. It's different. So you really need to master some skills in the different messaging skills. When to do an email, when to talk, pick up the phone, and when to do a telephone text message. And I use this extensively also in China. So I talk about the business. talking with the CEOs of joint venture, of Ford, using telephone, text messages, and email. And these are the tools. Some tools are stronger and more useful than others, depending on different situation. So be articulate when you are talking about the goals, the visions, the objectives. And when we talk about competing priorities, you're able to articulate the priorities and why with your colleagues. A lot of time I found in my experience, particularly working with joint venture, with Chinese partners, Turkey, Mexican, and for a lot of partners, over-communicate useful to overcome the language barriers and also different way of understanding the meaning. Because we're using English language, I try to use different ways of getting the same message through. Negotiation is a part of the communication. The huge skill is needed, for a successful leader. And this is something that I was essentially myself was tested for, almost over-tested. I was almost like a stretched to my limit. I mean, a very tough negotiation with partners for joint venture, multi-billion dollars on the commercial framework, licensing, market access, branding, engineering, bidding, all sort of areas. Very, very tough, but a lot of skills involved, and understanding the business, the context, understanding people and culture, and understanding the people coming different background. And so that really some skills need to develop, particularly in the future. A lot of joint venture, and you're collaborating with people from different industry. The next one I found is useful is ambiguity and uncertainty. When I was a junior manager at Ford, I was quite nervous on something ambiguous. I lack clarity, absolute clarity, or absolute certainty. And gradually I found they do not exist. The higher you get in your management ladder, the more ambiguity and uncertainty you need to manage. That is definitely proportional to that. And this is understandable because the more senior position, a lot of things you have to make judgment. As a junior manager, you're given a task to deliver. Clarity is needed because it's a task, and then everyone deliver their task, and they'll come together for delivery. So that's something you need to be aware of. Passion and drive, I think someone mentioned the motivation. That's clearly is a key personal attribute you need to have. And I'll say within that, you need to have discipline and the rigor. I mentioned the business integrity and engineering integrity. I think this is a quite important area as well, because you doing an engineering task and in a business negotiation, when you hold integrity and the principle in the long run, is going always to be a winner. People tend to bend the rules, cut corners, and in my experience, the transparency, the integrity, the principle, then this you lead by example. This is going to be an important attribute. And coaching people, I found that is quite satisfying. Also, in fact, is helping to yourself to have a further development. So it's some kind of a skill you need to have. When you're at a certain leadership level, you really need to have a clear, teachable point of view to share with your colleagues and coach new talent, and that's helped organizations to succeed.
So thank you for taking the time to watch the video. I hope you found it interesting. If you have any more questions about the university or the course, please feel free to visit our website. Thank you.